Hey everyone, Joseph here. I go by Audi Snapper on the forums, and I am back. Yes, I am finally back after 3 years away from the channel. I'm excited to be back to finally do part 3, 4, 5, and probably part 6 of the trophy truck rebuild. Obviously, a lot has changed over the years, and most notably, of course, the amount of gray in my beard. But the one thing that hasn't changed is my need to get this truck back together and back out in the dirt. One of the last trophy truck videos I did was part 2 of the rebuild, where I showed you how I brazed new pieces into the cage and sort of gave you a step-by-step on how you can braze your own cage together. Back then, I know I promised I would eventually do part 3 and show you how I prep the cage for paint, but I've gotten a lot of requests over the years to show off my DIY blasting setup, media blasting setup. So before we talk about paint prep, I'd like to give you a quick overview of my DIY media blasting booth. I'll talk about some of the recent improvements I've made to the booth. We'll talk about the things that you need to make a booth for yourself, and I'll even give you, a quick demonstration of media blasting this cage as the next step for paint prep. I also wanted to put out there that I do have a few other videos planned for the near future. One we've already touched on, and that's paint prep. As you can see right here, I don't know if I can show you in this camera, I have a quart of Steelit, the stainless steel paint that many of you have probably seen on social media that I plan to use to shoot the cage with. We'll call that part 4 of the rebuild. And then I've got this new, new to me, Losi Baja Ray Ford Raptor body that I picked up recently that needs to get custom fit to my build and then obviously painted. So we'll call that part 5. Then eventually, the main event, part 6, the part that I've been waiting for over the past 3 years, and that's the reassembly of the trophy truck. But before we can get to any of that, let's head outside to where I have my media blasting booth set up so that I can give you a quick tour and show you how awesome media blasting can be. All right, so I'm outside in my backyard where I have my very top secret and very, very DIY media blasting booth set up. I set it up outside mainly because of the amount of dust particles that come off of the booth during and after blasting, but also because my air compressor is in the garage, so I need to be close to that. So let's do a quick walk around here so that I can give you a little bit of a detail on how I put this together. Starting on the left side, it's pretty bare bones, but as you can see, I have 2 pipes extending out of the box. These are actually old repurposed curtain rods I had laying around. They pass all the way through the box and serve as supports for the wire mesh inside the box and give the box a way to suspend itself off the 2 sawhorses, one on each side. I also have this black bungee cord, which I use to latch the 2 top flaps. Have to hook it around these 2 screws. It really helps keep the dust inside the box, which is really paramount to keeping this thing not so messy. We can quickly jump around to the right side of the box since there's not much going on in the back besides a couple holes. On the right side of the box, the bungee cord setup is the same. Helps latch the 2 top flaps. But the key difference on this side is the bulkhead or the reinforcing piece of wood that I glued and stapled to the cardboard. It helps hold the light socket and the air hose whole. Previously, I just had a couple holes in the cardboard, and over time the cardboard started to, tear and stretch. It's just, cardboard's not going to hold up. So hopefully this will kind of add to the longevity of the cardboard. Moving around to the front, which is arguably the most important side of this box, I have a frame piece of glass. The glass is just a repurposed picture frame glass that I cut down to sort of match the size of the opening that I had previously cut. And then I, keep it in place with some wood and screws. Previously, I had a piece of glass that was taped to the box, which didn't work out so well on a hot summer day. The tape sort of softened up and the glass fell and broke. So on either side of the glass, I have the two armholes. The black material that you see is really meant for cupboard shelves. I guess that's so you can put your dinnerware on something a little bit softer. It's kind of a rubbery sort of material, and it helps to sort of make the front look a little bit better since I had a few holes in the cardboard, and it helps make the armholes a little bit better looking as well. Moving down to the bottom, which is equally important, I have sloped the cardboard down to sort of pitch down to this clear plastic container, which collects the media after it's been shot through the gun, and then it can recirculate. If I were to do this again, I would probably slope the cardboard a little bit more. The media sort of sticks to the cardboard and doesn't want to slide very well. I do have this little silver thing sort of in between the cardboard and the clear container, and that's an old light bezel that I sort of cut and shaped to help focus the media down into the clear plastic container. Moving on up to the top of the box, you can see that I added a couple strips of wood to help reinforce these flaps, the two big long flaps. They were starting to warp. All of the wood is glued and stapled to the cardboard, so hopefully that'll add some life to this box. Maybe give me a few more years of use. Let's get these gloves out of the way, and I'll show you guys what's going on the inside. Immediately, you'll see that I have framed the top of the box with some wood, really just to help reinforce it and give it some rigidity. You can see inside that I've got the wire mesh that's zip tied to the curtain rods that pass all the way through. The curtain rods have some wood at either end to, again, help reinforce it, otherwise the cardboard would tear. You may notice there's a hole in the middle down at the bottom. That's where the media will slide down into the clear plastic container. I've got a couple incandescent bulbs in here as well. Let me see if I can, there we go. They're not very efficient. They get hot. I probably need to replace them with some LEDs or a bunch of LED strips to help really light the inside of this box. But for now, that's sort of what I have going on. There's the media gun. There's my cage. The wire mesh really helps, when you're blasting just about anything. All right, I think that's more or less it. Let's do a quick demonstration, and then we'll head back inside and wrap this up. I guess one of the big struggles when working with this box, at least with a cage this big, is that the cage doesn't want to flip around too easily, and the rigidity of the hoses make the gun a little hard to maneuver. But it's a small price to pay in having something like this. You just keep flipping it around until you get as much as you can. And the great thing about media blasting also is that it really creates lots of sharp edges for the paint to stick to. When I mean sharp, I don't mean like as in sharp to the touch, but it has a lot of bite for the paint. Pretty tough to get every surface on these cages. I mean, there's 50 tubes in here, and you got to get all sides of the tube I know tubes don't really have sides, but you know what I mean. Hopefully seeing the media blasting booth in all of its glory was either informative or somewhat interesting, and maybe even a little inspiring, maybe enough for someone to build their own. I don't know. I mean, I built mine out of a Target cardboard box and scraps of wood and a piece of glass from an old picture frame. I think you could do it too. So here's the blasted cage. I'll pop up an image of the cage before it was blasted so that hopefully there's a good contrast between the before and after. Nice and shiny. There are definitely some areas that need to be touched up, but overall it's close. So let's talk about what you need to build one of these media blast booths. There are 4 main components, and I'll list them over here somewhere. First, you'll need an air compressor. The compressor will need to maintain a decent amount of constant airflow, probably in the range of 10 CFM, which is a rating that compressors use, at around 90 to 100 PSI. I run mine about 80 PSI just to sort of stretch it out a little bit, but those little pancake compressors, they might struggle a little bit to keep up, so having a larger tank is pretty important. Second, you'll need a box or some sort of enclosure to contain all of the blasted media. You don't want it flying all over the place for a variety of reasons. Not only will it make a massive mess, but you'll run out of the media within minutes if you have no way to collect it and use it again once it's been used. Obviously, a cardboard box works, but if you have the means and the ability, maybe a wooden box is the way to go. I don't know, maybe try it. Third, you'll need a media blasting gun, which I have here on the table. I picked mine up at Amazon, of course. I'll leave the link in the description below. I'm sure there are many other media guns out there, but I found that a siphon style gun works the best in a configuration like mine because the gravity feed guns have a tank attached to the top of the gun, and it makes it even more difficult to maneuver inside the media booth. Plus, you have to reload the gravity guns, whereas the siphon gun recycles the media that has already been shot. When it drops down into, like for example, my little clear container, it just keeps circulating. Finally, the fourth item you'll need is the blasting media, which I have a container of it here. There are many types of blasting media out there, but I've only tried sand and glass bead, which is what this stuff is. Although the sand is cheap and it does work and is very accessible at places like Home Depot, sand tends to be a little too coarse, and the gun sometimes struggles to suck up the sand through the hose and can be a bit frustrating. So far, I've had the best luck with the glass bead and have found it at places like Harbor Freight for pretty cheap. Again, I'll put the link in the description below. Beyond the 4 major components when building a media blasting booth, you'll want to have a few safety items on hand as well. A respirator, or at the very least, a dust style mask is very important. Although my box is getting better and better, it's still not entirely sealed from dust. And without a respirator, I'd be inhaling a lot of this dust and debris. Another important item is some cheap painter's gloves, which I have here on the table as well. I find them at places like Home Depot. You can get them at a paint store. They're essential when working with blasting media. I originally started out using welding gloves, which are much thicker, but found that they are way too big to get through the armholes in the box, and actually are overkill for what I'm doing. Painter's gloves hold up very well in the booth and have not caused any problems so far. I also recommend a long sleeve sweater, a hoodie, or shirt when media blasting, because the media does tend to bounce around inside the booth and will irritate the skin, especially around your wrist if you don't have something long sleeve on. Even if you don't shoot yourself directly, it still bounces around. Make sure you choose an old long sleeve item of clothing because it'll obviously take a beating when it's inside the booth. The rest of the media booth is entirely up to your creativity and ingenuity. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. And of course, if you have any questions on anything that I didn't cover or didn't get into detail enough, please post in the comments below. I'm pretty good about answering questions relatively quickly and with as much information as possible. All right, I think that's it for me. You all know what to do. Hit the like button if you found this video informative and not obnoxiously long, and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this on my channel in the future. Until the next video,